Welcome back to SaharaTV, where we bring you in-depth analysis of the biggest stories shaping Nigeria and the world. Today, we're dissecting the controversial suspension of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, which has sparked outrage across the country. Is this an unconstitutional abuse of power? What does the law actually say? To break this down, we're joined by Mr. Adeyanju, a seasoned lawyer and human rights advocate. Mr. Adeyanju, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on SaharaTV. Always a pleasure.
Great. Let's take a deep dive into this. Legal experts have called the suspension unconstitutional. From a constitutional perspective, does the Nigerian Senate have the legal authority to suspend a senator for 6 months, especially under the circumstances of alleged procedural violations and a concurrent sexual harassment claim, sir?
Well, simply put, simplicity, the Senate does not have the right or the power to suspend a lawmaker who is representing her people from legislative duties at the National Assembly. And this position has been backed by the locus classical case in Speaker of Bauchi State House of Assembly and Honorable Rifkatu Samson Dana. It's a 2017 case wherein the applicant in that matter had approached the court after suspension by the Bauchi State House of Assembly to say, oh, my people have been denied representation. And the court, in its well-considered ruling and judgment, declared that, yes, the Bauchi State House of Assembly does not have the right to suspend the lawmaker, from legislative duty, that doing so would deprive the people of the constituents of the honorable member representation. The Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan is a representative of the people of Kogi Central at the National Assembly. So denying her an opportunity of representation is equal to taking away the constitutional powers that have been donated by the Constitution, that every senatorial district will have a representative in the national in the upper chamber, just like the way every House of Rep district, representative district, have members in the House of Reps and also in the House of Assembly of the state. So by taking away that power, which the Senate does not have, even by the Senate's own rules, the Senate's own rule says that you can only suspend for 10 days, 10 clear days, 14 legislative days.
Yeah.
That's what the Senate rule says. You understand? And that Senate rule has been declared to even be inconsistent with the Constitution, because it is the Constitution that gives power. It is the Constitution that gives power to the legislature, to the executive and the judiciary. And all legislative powers that have been donated by the Constitution is encapsulated in the Constitution. So any law or any rule so made that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void to the extent of its inconsistency. So the Senate rules cannot be more pronounced or more prominent than the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and then as amended. And the Senate rules is not at large. You cannot just become more powerful all of a sudden, more than the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, or more than the decision of courts. And the most painful aspect of this is that while the Senate Committee on Ethics, was presiding over the suspension debate of Natasha Akpoti, there was already a positive order of court. There was already a positive order of court barring them from taking further steps until the substantive motion of notice, which was before the court is determined. But the Akpabio Senate, the Akpabio stamp Senate, that have no regard for the people of Nigeria, that have no regard for the people of Kogi Central, that have no regard for even, decided cases on this same subject matter, went ahead in flagrant contravention and disregard for that Federal High Court ruling, ex parte ruling, barring the committee as a whole, from taking any further step, went and endorsed the recommendation of the committee, which is a flagrant abuse of court process. It's a flagrant disregard of the rule of law, because the court, several in a plethora of cases, the most notable, which is Ojukwu and Lagos State government, has said that it is the government that needs to obey the rule of law more than even the citizens, that because they cannot govern without the rule of law. So when the Senate of the National Assembly, they're supposed to know the law, know the rules, obey court judgments and pronouncements, when they flagrantly disobey the law or they are not abreast of the law, because how can they suspend her for 6 months when their own rule says it's 14 legislative days? That is on one hand. On the other hand, why will they proceed to take disciplinary actions against her when there's a positive order of court to say you cannot take any action on this matter until the substantive matter has been decided by the court? So it simply means that the legislature have no regard for rule of law or the judiciary. And among all the 109 senators that were present during the debate on the floor, nobody could point out the fact that there are already decided cases. As the reference case I mentioned in my intro, the Bauchi State case and Honorable Donor in that matter in 2017, that, none of them could bring these cases, and a plethora of other cases, Ali Ndume and the Dino Melaye and the Senate, a plethora of cases, have been decided by the court, Omagege and the Senate, a plethora of cases that you can't even suspend more than 14 days because that's what your rule says. How then do you proceed? The most recent of the 2017 case, which is now even in line with judicial precedent, that's third decisive, by the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal ruling is more superior to the Ali Ndome and the Mwagege cases, because the Court of Appeal now has made a blanket statement that you cannot even suspend. You cannot suspend a lawmaker. You cannot suspend a lawmaker entirely. That is what the Court of Appeal recent decision has said. Because doing so is depriving our constituents representation.
Now, given that Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan has filed a lawsuit seeking 100 billion naira in damage, what legal avenues are available to her under Nigerian law to challenge her suspension and the dismissal of her petition?
Yes, simply put, in my view, I feel that the most important thing is that she must first challenge her suspension. By challenging her suspension, the matter is already before the court. The court is seized of jurisdiction of the matter. She must challenge her suspension now that the matter that she had taken to court has been overtaken by the flagrant disregard and this disobedience to the ruling of the Federal High Court. She must now put it in issue, and now join the proper parties in that matter, because steps have been taken. The steps that the Federal High Court said must not be taken has been taken against her. So she must now put the issue of her suspension in issue for determination before the court properly. She must now challenge the 6-month suspension vis-a-vis what the House rule says, that it can only be for 14 legislative days.
Yeah.
Additionally, she must bring about into issue again the 72 hours injunction that was given by the Federal High Court, because that must be an issue that, in clear disregard for the rule of this honorable court that was already seized of jurisdiction, the committee went ahead, deliberated on this matter. That's why the court issued a 72 hours injunction that they must not do so. That in flagrant disregard to the court, that the committee sat, unanimously decided that I should be suspended. Yes, that the committee sat and unanimously decided that I should be suspended, despite the fact that there had been a decision by the court that should not have been done in the instant case. So those two issues must now be issues for determination before the court. In doing so, the court will most likely, in my considered view, rule against the Senate and restore her back to her seat.
Now, the Senate leader, Akpabio-led has emphasized that Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan's suspension was due to persistent misconduct and disregard for Senate rules, not her sexual harassment allegations. How do Senate rules balance the need for discipline with the right to free expression? And do you believe that these rules were applied fairly in this case?
You know, this can be synonymous with the Yoruba saying that a witch cried yesterday night and a child died this morning. Who does not know that it was the witch that cried yesterday night that killed the child? Even while the seat of Senator Natasha was being changed, she kept making reference to Order 10. And Order 10 is the last resort for every parliamentarian in the National Assembly. That when an injustice is being done against you, and any parliament raises point of order and cites Order 10 of the rules of the Senate, that every deliberation is suspended to give that senator fair hearing. That was not done in the case. In fact, when she was raising Order 10, Senator Akpabio, the presiding officer of the Senate, is forcefully removed her from the Senate. You understand? It simply means that there was no intention to give her fair hearing whatsoever. There was no intention whatsoever to give her fair hearing. Not only was she not given fair hearing, all the further steps that were taken after the denial of hearing from her, the Senate rule says before you change somebody's seat, that you must inform the senator. The idea is that it is after you have informed the senator. She was never informed. It is after you have informed the senator that the step can now be taken of changing. So they violated their own rules in Natasha's case. And after violating their rule, they expected her not to complain. And after she complained, and now raised sundry issues, and even wrote, and now formally brought the complaint before them. They said, no, you cannot do this. You cannot speak ill of leadership. Oh, there must be a culture of silence. So for me, in my view, all what Senator Akpabio was doing and what was done on the floor of the Senate was aimed at harassing, bullying, and promoting the culture of silence in the National Assembly. You know, and the reason why these guys could not speak up, majority of them are not happy with the way Akpabio runs the Senate, as if senators are pupils in a primary school. Majority of them are not happy. But the email that they keep sharing, the envelopes, you know, Akpabio has said that, oh, I have sent mail to your inbox. Go and check. So those envelopes that they keep sharing, they are the reasons why many of them do not have the courage, you know, to speak truth to power. It's very unfortunate, but this is the situation at the National Assembly.
Now, critics have also argued that the Senate President Akpabio should not have even presided over a case in which he was personally implicated, citing a conflict of interest. From a constitutional standpoint, sir, should parliamentary leaders recuse themselves in such situations, and what mechanism exists to ensure impartiality?
Yes, whenever a complaint has been made against a presiding officer, the right thing, the proper thing, the ethical thing to do is for him to recuse himself and allow the Deputy Senate President preside. This is not the first time such a thing is happening. Saraki did it around 2017 over issues of allegations against him for buying bulletproof cars. He recused himself, he allowed the Deputy Senate President to preside. You know, and they could have still done this, their dirty hatchet job properly. The chairman of the ethics committee was on Arise News defending Akpabio and insulting Natasha. Few days before Akpabio constituted, referred the petition of Natasha to his committee. So it can be that Akpabio did not have to be a judge in his own matter. You cannot be a judge in your own matter and expect that there will be fairness, equity, or justice. Just like the way that ethics committee chairman ought not to have sat on this matter because they had already picked a fight in the race, and he will have consulted independent, neutral people. You know, at least there are four to five women in that Senate. Yeah. You'll have gotten some women involved in the committee. You have gotten some opposition people involved. Balance the committee and say, oh, I have nothing to hide. These allegations against me, they are not true. Please investigate me. But that was not done in the instant case.
Unfortunately, this case has sparked protest and drawn international attention, with some arguing that it undermines Nigeria's democratic principles. How might the handling of this suspension impact public trust in the Senate and the broader political system? And what constitutional reforms could restore confidence in this regard?
This case notwithstanding, the Nigerian public have zero confidence in their leaders. The Senate is considered an appendage of the villa.
Exactly.
They are saying more. Akpabio is saying more like an errand boy to Tinubu. The speaker, same thing. So nothing could have further, encouraged citizens' trust in the National Assembly. This is almost like a final nail in the coffin, because look at the comments of citizens from all across political divide. Even members of the APC are disgusted and disappointed by the show of shame in the National Assembly. Of course, the international community mocks us. Look at the reports, the international press reports that we have seen from Al Jazeera, BBC, and other international, even ABC in America. People have mocked, even South Africans are mocking Nigerians. You understand? How can you, the leader of the parliament, be accused of sexual harassment? And this is what you can come up with. This ridiculous show of shame is what you can come up with. The irreducible minimum is that even if you didn't want to be fair or just, there should have been a show or some form of Nollywood acting to display neutrality, fairness, and equity in the matter. But these guys were blatantly shameless in the way Natasha was shut up, and the way they just silenced her voice, and made a ridicule of the nation at a critical time of International Women's Day. Okay. No shame. And they subsequently went ahead and hired women to protest who did not even have an idea what they were protesting about and saying they are in support of Akpabio.
Are there any lessons that you believe this case holds for the future of parliamentary accountability, gender equality, and the rule of law in Nigeria?
Yes, that the rule of law, citizens will not have respect for the judiciary, for the legislature, for the executive, if government institutions do not obey laws. That the greatest lesson that we must take away, the greatest takeaway here is that the irreducible minimum in a democracy is that orders of court must be binding, whether it is favorable or not. Rules of court, the rulings of court, that there must be some semblance of respect for the rulings of court, which is why every sane person, we're not running, we're not in the Tarzan era, we're not in the era of the Hercules, and so the era of the apes, where the strongest prevail. You understand? We're in the era of where rules and regulations should mean something. So if the legislature have no regard, for rule of law, why then should anybody obey rules of law? The issues around accountability is that leaders must be willing to explain. The most painful thing for me is that even if the allegations by Natasha were frivolous, at least allow a committee, a panel, to invite both parties. Allow her to lay forward allegations and bring witnesses or evidence, lead evidence. Allow Akpabio to cross-examine her. Allow Akpabio to defend himself. You understand? This all boils down to parliamentary accountability and promoting rule of law and accountability, within the political ecosystem in our country. But a situation where, you shut everything up, you promote a culture of silence, you bully, you harass the senator that has raised these salient issues, then you are not promoting accountability and you are not ensuring that people have confidence in the system.
Still on the matter of accountability, there are media reports of Imaswe, that's the chairman of the ethics committee, having been disbarred from the in the United States courts as a lawyer. And questions are being raised that a person in position of power like that, especially one responsible for ethics and privileges in the Senate, should be held to the highest standards of integrity. But would you like to speak to this, please?
Yes, please. Very simple. Very, very simple. That the reason why such people can do such hatchet jobs is that these people have nothing to lose. They practically have nothing to lose. These are the kind of people that are recruited to do such jobs. Because if it is a man, I have not read the reports, but if the reports are true, if it is true, then it simply means that yes, That's the reason why such jobs are given to them in the first place. You know, because it's just unheard of that you will not give people, you not give people the right to defend themselves. You will not allow fair hearing. You will not even entertain the idea of transparency, of accountability. No matter how you try to pretend about it, these guys are not pretending whatsoever. And the reason why, in response to this issue, why I said the National Assembly, particularly the Senate in this instant case, have been most disrespectful to our Constitution, most disrespectful to our courts, is that Section 287 of the Constitution of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, says all decisions of courts, whether it be Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, the High Court, the Federal High Court, the NIC, all the courts, that all decisions of courts in Nigeria are binding on all persons and institutions. The National Assembly as an institution is binded by decision of the Federal High Court. That to have disregarded the 72 hours injunction, restraining the National Assembly, restraining the Ethics Committee from entertaining that matter, is a clear violation and abuse of our Constitution. The National Assembly has desecrated our Constitution and the courts and have no regard for the courts. And that is why Nigerians should not have any regard for them.
This is certainly a developing story, and we'll be watching closely. Deji Adeyanju, thank you so much for sharing your insights on this critical issue.
Thank you for having me.
And to our viewers, what do you think? Is this suspension an abuse of power, or does the Senate have a case? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth reporting. This is SaharaTV, bringing you the truth behind the headlines. See you next time.